Hi, Frank Snyder, Frank Snyder Financial. I'd like to visit with you on my 3-point retirement plan. It's a pretty simple plan. Pay off the car, the house, and the kids. I'm being serious here. This is basically what I've seen over the years that successful people do. Car's pretty easy. You know, you have a 3-year note, 4-year note, 5-year note, whatever the heck it is, or you just go write a check. Get all the debts that you have paid off. When you retire, you don't want to be in the debt business anymore. You want to have everything free and clear. Second is the house. You say, how do I pay off a house? I have a 30-year mortgage, a 20-year mortgage. Well, it's real simple. They allow you to pay extra. They really do. You can pay whatever amount that you want. I know when I first got started, I did what everybody does. I went out and got a 30-year mortgage on the house, but I always paid extra. Rule of thumb here, $100,000 note, you pay about $100 extra. It cuts 10 years off that payment schedule. All of a sudden you went from 30 to 20, and it only cost you $100. Now that's rough estimate, might be 112, might be 89, but pretty close. $100. What is that really? That's a nice dinner out. I mean, a trip to Walmart. I mean, probably not even a trip to Walmart. So basically anybody can pay off their house in 20 years versus 30 if they just, throw a little extra at it. It's a little harder to get from 20 down to 15. You're going to have to double 2.5 times that. It might take 200, 250, even 300 to get down to 15, but it's still doable. If you pay off the car, and all of a sudden now you have that $300 or $400 or whatever that payment was, or $500, and you start throwing that on the house, pretty soon you're knocking down the mortgage. One of the things that I recommend, I have all sorts of calculators on my website, franksnyder.com, and there's a ton of great calculators on the internet. You can plug in the balance, basically find out how much do I owe on that, that house or that car or that note, what's my interest rate, and then you can play with the payments, and you can see, hey, if I pay, $10 extra, $20 extra, $50 extra, $100 extra. Call me weird, but I think this stuff is fascinating, where all of a sudden you can save tens of thousands of dollars on your mortgage. I mean, come on. But the reality is sometimes people are more interested in the next, football or baseball game than they are in getting out of debt. And I'm here to tell you that if you'll spend a little time trying to get out of debt, your life will be a whole lot easier. Now let's visit on the third one, your kids. Now this is where we have to get a little bit serious, because that's the hardest. You go, the hardest? What are you talking about, Frank? Paying off a house, 30-year mortgage? Well, your child can be an 80-year mortgage. It can be a 50-year mortgage. He or she can be, a lifetime commitment, depending on the situation. So one of the things that I try to teach is your main objective when you have a child that comes into the world is to create and nurture and bring up a fully functioning adult. And really, what's a fully functioning adult? That's someone that doesn't need your financial support. It's pretty simple. Someone who has gainful employment. They're paying for their own food, their own clothing, their own shelter, and hopefully they're prospering. And if you've done a marvelous job, maybe they go out and become more successful than you were. And wouldn't that be a cool experience? So how do we raise successful children? Now I'm going to talk on the financial terms. Many times over the years, I've sat down with clients and I've visited on, how do you get them into college and get them through college? And my gosh, Frank, have you looked at how much the university or whatever costs? And I'm right there with you. I mean, for a number of years, we sent some pretty serious checks to a couple different universities. And we got our kids through, and I'm happy to say they have no student loans. And that, this day and age, is a tremendous accomplishment. So let me tell you how we started. We started off when they were little and just encouraged reading. I mean, reading is really the crux of everything. If you have a child that likes to read and reads books, that's everything. That's everything. Zig Ziglar many years ago basically did studies on prisons, and he found out that the majority of people that were incarcerated, had a very, very poor reading skills. And again, his correlation there was, they couldn't do any better, so I guess they decided to leave a life of crime. And again, hopefully our children wouldn't go that direction, but get them reading at an early age. And then what worked for me and what worked for my children was, what I call sometimes the bribery plan. It's like the minute my kids started getting letter grades, I gave them $50 for straight A's. And, this has been a number of years ago, and I know, again, $50 can be a lot for some people. It could be $20, $30, but I stretched and I did 50. And you say, why in the world would you give your kid $50 in, second grade or third grade for straight A's? I said, because it got them wanting to get $50 from me. When Dad had to come home with a $50 bill, and they didn't want 20s and 10s, they wanted that 50, it was like, my wife would call me and say, hey, you got $100? And I'd be like, no, I don't have $100, but I'll go to the bank and get it. Do we have $100? I'm like, yeah, we do. I mean, sometimes it was kind of funny. It was like, you're the one that made this deal. And I'm like, I know. So I'd go get the $50 and give both the kids their $100, and they were excited, very excited about that, because they got that money off of Dad. They got the straight A's. And this is what I'm telling all you out there. That $50, that $100 will come back to you 1,000-fold if they continue with those habits. If they go through life and they decide, I'm a straight A student. And sometimes that's a decision. I'll be all sincere with you guys. I was not always a straight A student. And so, my parents did the same thing. I remember at one point my dad had bought a motorcycle that I really liked. And I hadn't been doing quite as good as I probably should have been doing. I think this was 8th or 9th grade. And I told my dad, I said, I'm trying as hard as I can, Dad. And he looked at me and he said, I don't believe you. I really don't believe you. I think you have a lot more potential than what your report card is showing. And he said, you know what? I'm going to give you that motorcycle if you get on the B honor roll. And I said, you're going to what? He said, I'm going to give you that motorcycle if you get on the B honor roll. And I said, well, I don't know if I can do it or not, but I'll try. And so I started doing something that was unheard of around my house. I brought a textbook home. I brought several textbooks home. My parents had never seen my textbooks before, and they came home. I actually opened them up and did some reading within those textbooks. I started paying a little closer attention at school. I started taking notes. I started doing things that I hadn't been doing before. I found out that I actually did a little too good. I ended up on the A honor roll instead of the B honor roll. I was an overachiever, I guess, but I really wanted that motorcycle. So in the end, my dad, he tells the story better than I do, but we were out hunting, and he told me, he said, I hadn't gotten my report card yet. We didn't know what I had gotten, but he told me that the motorcycle was mine. That it really didn't matter what the grades were on the report card, that he had seen a definite change in my effort and my activity, and that he was going to go, no matter what the grades were, the motorcycle was mine. And then, as I said, I was overachiever. I got on the A honor roll. But from that point on, my grades were always better. That was kind of the turning point. Now, I started with my kids at a very young age, and my parents did the same thing. I kind of got off maybe the path for a while, and I had to get back on that path. So my wife said one time, she said, well, what are you going to do when they get to high school? I said, well, that's pretty simple. I said, we're going to give them $100. She said, $100? That's a lot of money. And I said, well, it's still going to motivate them. It's enough money that it's going to motivate them. And I said, take $100, divide it by the number of hours they're in school. It's literally like, 4 cents an hour or 8 cents an hour. I mean, it's really nothing when you look at it from a wage standpoint. So that's what we began to do. So again, it became the Benjamin. That was the joke around my house, is, the kids wanted to get the Benjamin. And again, there was a few times when, I'd get that call, hey, you got 2 Benjamins? And I'd be like, I'd open up my wallet, I'd be like, no, okay, I better run the bank and get that money. Now, this is backtracking just a little bit. One of the funny stories on this, when my daughter was really young, she'd keep a cash box in her room. And at one point, she'd gotten, grades and, birthday presents from Grandma and Grandpa and, all this stuff. And, yeah, I think she had, several, 300, 400, 500, I don't remember, dollars in her cash box in her room. And telling my wife, she used to go back and she would borrow money from my daughter, because she had more money than she had. So she had these little, IOUs to my daughter in her little cash box. Now, she hadn't got the point. I probably should have taught her about, the rule of 72 and compound interest. And she would have said, here, Mom, here's $50, but if you pay me back next week, it's 51, the week after it's 52, but luckily she didn't understand compound interest at that point. So anyway, I've kind of gotten off the topic a little bit bit, but do you follow what I'm saying? If you want to retire someday, you have to pay off the car, the house, and the kids. And this is all a process of teaching your kids, to do well. I had one client that implemented this, and they were just marveled at how, how quickly the daughters, began to pay more attention and do better. And she did like $200. And part of her deal was, though, that $100 of the $200 went into their savings account. And the funny thing that she found was the daughters then were like, well, Mom, I only need maybe $30 or $40 of this. Can I put more into my savings account? And she's going, Frank, it works. It really works. Not only are they saving the amount I kind of made them save, which I was just really, giving it to them to put in an account for their future and their college and everything anyway. And I'm teaching them then to save even more. So again, kids can, be motivated by this stuff. Now, the other cool thing that happens is that when you give them this money, now they have money. So they can make conscious purchasing decisions. So, when they want something, which every kid does, everybody does, I want this video game, I want this phone, I want this, whatever the heck that it is, you can say to them, well, you've got money, sweetheart, you have more money than I do, it's like, go to your cash box, you've gotten straight A's for X number, buy it if you'd like. And my kids used to say, well, we don't want to spend our money, we don't want to spend your money. And then it'd be the negotiation process here of, well, hey, what if I cut the grass? Or what if I do this? Or what if I do? So again, now what are we teaching them? Basically sales and negotiating skills. Do you think they'll need these skills later in life? We're teaching them buying decisions, purchasing decisions. You go out and make a bad purchase with your money. You regret that purchase. These are all adult things that these, children are learning as they go along. So basically, again, kind of go back, car, the house, the kids. The kids can be the most difficult. They really can. So you've got to work with your children to, help them to become fully functioning adults. You don't want to be that parent that's getting that phone call, hey, I'm in a situation, I need your help. And it's not just, it's okay to help them once in a while, but I'm talking about over and over and over and over and over. And then they're basically, bleeding you dry and making it difficult for you to someday retire. So again, that's my 3-point plan. Take it, put it into effect. Appreciate you taking a minute to take a look and view my videos. You can see us on YouTube or at franksnyder.com. Thanks and have a great day.